We treated our daughter as a princess because we were quite well off. We gave her more than $140,000 to cover her weddings, receptions, honeymoons, and even the divorce costs from her last 2 marriages. Now, she is calling us cheap for refusing to fund her third one. I should start by saying that my daughter, 30F, is an only child. She has always been our princess, so to speak, and she's received everything material that a girl could ask for. Before you criticize my husband, her father, and me for spoiling her, we do realize that we shouldn't have given her everything from a young age, but we didn't know any better back then. And we had the money, we're quite well off, so we figured, why not support our only child? My husband owns his own business, and I am a school teacher. Together we make decent money, and I am looking to retire in the near future. When we first started out, I stayed at home, and my husband worked an office job, so my daughter has been pampered with all of my attention and her father's support. She is now going to be married for the 3rd time in her short life. Her only job is occasionally supply teaching in the same school board I work at, so she doesn't have much of a big career yet, but I do hope she will find work. I'll spare you the long of it. She married her high school boyfriend at 22 years old, and they divorced less than 2 years later in a bitter fight. The wedding was lavish, as it was her first, and we truly believed that they would make it work. I guess my husband and I also saw through rose-colored glasses since we were married very young as well and are approaching our 35th anniversary. My husband and I pitched in around $25,000 for the wedding ceremony and reception, and perhaps another $3,000 for their honeymoon to Europe. The second time, she was proposed to by another man she was dating. He was a hard-working, blue-collar man, but his family didn't have much money. Again, she asked if we could help out with her wedding, saying that it was true love this time around. We met the man, and he was a stand-up, wholesome person, so a year after that, my daughter, then 27, was married to this second husband. We paid for most of the wedding costs and the honeymoon, to the tune of $43,000. Her then husband's mother was a nurse, and his father was a deadbeat. They didn't provide much when it came to the wedding itself, and I admit my husband and I did harbor ill will toward the fact that her husband's father's name was clearly printed on the reception and invitations as a generously contributing member of the wedding party. But that's another story. They divorced because of money issues less than 3 years later. By this time, we were tired and forked over money for her divorce costs, trying to regroup our finances. We do have a comfortable nest egg saved up for our post-retired life. I would like to travel the world and maybe buy a small lake house with my husband. He also enjoys woodworking as a hobby, but now my daughter, who has begun dating another man, has excitedly shown us that she is engaged once again. The man in question proposed less than a year into their dating, and she is elated more than anything because, after her second divorce, she didn't think any man would want her anymore. My daughter has hinted at wedding costs and brings home bridal magazines and ideas for cakes and dresses and venues. I want to be happy for her happiness, but there's a voice inside me that is screaming, enough. We have spent almost over $140,000 of my husband's and my money for my daughter's 2 failed marriages, wedding, reception, honeymoon costs, divorce costs, and I cannot believe she is thinking of planning another lavish ceremony at our expense. I've tried suggesting maybe this time she should opt for a small backyard ceremony, but she turns it around on us and says that we don't believe in her happiness and that we are being cheap, as she is our only daughter and her father and I are quite well off. Which, to be fair, she is right. I am at a loss for what to say to her. Update. Hello, it's been a long time. I wanted to retroactively thank everyone for the advice and the anger. Must admit that hearing others rage about my situation was pretty cathartic for me. I wasn't going to log back in to post an update. I couldn't even recall the password for this throwaway account, but so many of you gave me excellent advice that I feel I must give an update, sad as it is. As many of you predicted, she threw a great big tantrum when her father and I told her explicitly that we would not be paying for the wedding this time around. We said we would buy her a wedding dress and the cake, but that would be the end of it. Whatever else she wanted would have to come from her and her fiancé's pocketbook. She said we don't care for her happiness. She cried. She said that we were selfish. Everything all of you said was going to happen, happened. All these things hurt so much to hear because they aren't true. We do care very much for her, but enough was simply enough. She went so far as to chuck her wedding planner binder into the backyard pool, which was grotesque to watch. We asked to meet the fiancé in question over dinner. What a gem he was. Tattoos all over his knuckles and his neck, showed up to meet us in sweatpants and an ill-fitting hoodie, didn't even shake our hands or introduce himself properly. He looked like trailer trash. When we asked what his occupation was, he said he was a sound technician, which made me feel embarrassed for being so prejudiced, but after a quick conversation at the dinner table, where he behaved in the most disgusting manner, it turned out that he is a freelance DJ. At 39 years old, I believe one should at least be put together, not living with other roommates and working at clubs on weekends. My daughter, I do not know what was wrong with her. She looked at him with such adoring eyes as if he were the best thing since sliced bread. We doubted that he could provide for himself, let alone a family. I don't know if this was a sign, but the sight of this man-boy solidified our decision not to finance a drop of our daughter's third wedding. We still agreed to pay for the cake and the dress, but no more. We even had doubts that maybe this thug was only planning to marry our daughter for the money. We assumed it was true when we found out she had been paying for a few months' worth of his rent that he could not afford to pay out of her own pocket. Like I said, I don't know what was wrong with her. We gave her a budget of $13,000 for a beautiful dress and maybe another $2,000 for the cake. The wedding planning itself was a disaster, as my daughter had a meltdown over every single little thing that went wrong, even though we tried to tell her that she could use the $15,000 budget to plan the entire wedding instead of just spending it on the dress and cake alone. That was our intention, and that maybe she could scale back the dress and cake for a more humble affair. Maybe it would teach her the value of $1. She would not budge. She did not invite us to the wedding, let alone the reception. We don't even know how it was, as we were not shown any photographs afterward. I spent the entire week crying when I found out she had left us out of the wedding party. She came back a few times with a U-Haul and her disgusting husband to take her possessions from our home and moved in with him. While my husband and I were gone on a vacation to New Orleans right before Christmas, we received several voicemails, all from our daughter. Her voice was slurring, as if she had been heavily drinking. She said that she was going to divorce him as he was a fucking deadbeat who couldn't even treat her to a nice dinner. She said she's had to sell her engagement ring to pay the rent, that she is still living with his roommates, and, this is the part that just sends me into anger, that if only we had paid for her wedding and helped her buy a home with him, this wasn't even discussed between us. I do not know where she got this idea from. She would have made this marriage last. If we had given her more money. My God. What have we done? I am shaking with anger just typing this. My husband wanted to leave her a seething voicemail. I talked him out of it. So now, she has moved forward with the divorce. We will be here for her. We will take her back into our home, but only if she wishes. At this point, we have heard nothing from her, and she does not pick up her phone. It is so easy to blame ourselves for being bad parents, and I just feel so awful. She is our only child, and if any of our nieces or nephews behave this way toward our siblings, we would have cut them out of the family in a second. But we can't. She is our only child, now 31 years old and a thrice divorcee. It pains me so much what has happened over the last year. I feel like I've lost a daughter.